They say some of the darkest stories don't come from books, but from the confessions of people who lived through something they were never meant to escape. Tonight, we explore the haunted trails and cursed towers of park rangers, those stationed deep in the wilderness where help is hours away and the forest never sleeps. These are original tales, based on Reddit-style ranger horror, not copied, not read from posts, but imagined from the same chilling question, what if it really happened? So find a quiet place, let the night settle in, and whatever you do, don't follow the trail that wasn't there yesterday. Welcome to Whispers After Dark, where shadows talk and the night listens. Subscribe, like, and comment. Don't forget to hit the notification button so you won't miss an episode. Now let's get on with our stories. They say predators leave signs, tracks in the mud, blood in the snow, claw marks on bark. But in these woods, there are no signs, no struggle. Just an unnatural stillness that settles over the trees, like the forest itself is holding its breath. Some who go missing are found, but not how they should be. No bones, no blood, just skin left behind like a forgotten coat. Something is out there. Something that doesn't kill for hunger or rage. Something that wants to wear you. This is the story of hollow bones and hollow faces. They always blamed coyotes, or mountain lions. Something with claws and teeth and a reason. That's what the reports would say, neatly typed and buried in some underfunded wildlife agency's digital archive. But that's not what Ranger Micah found. Not up here. Not on the ridgeline above Dead Elk Hollow. The call came in just after dawn. A group of hikers had stumbled across something in a shallow clearing near the northern Firebreak Trail. At first, Micah thought it was just another carcass. Maybe a bear kill, maybe a natural death. Happens all the time. But the way the hiker had described it on the radio, voice shaking and clipped, it's wrong. It's all wrong. That stuck with him. He loaded up the ATV and rode out, expecting blood, fur, maybe a cleanup report. Instead, he found silence. The deer was lying on its side, perfectly intact. No blood. No punctures. Its eyes were still wet, glassy, as if it had died seconds before. But when he touched it, just a light press on the side, it folded. Collapsed like an empty costume. No bones, no organs, just skin. Flattened and weightless, like something had drained it from the inside out. Micah stepped back, breath catching in his throat. Flies buzzed nearby but didn't land. They knew better. He marked the location, took photos, sent them to headquarters. No response came. Not that day, not the next. A strange static filled the Ranger radio every time he tried to transmit from the site. He chalked it up to interference, storms, maybe solar flares. But the nights that followed were louder than the days. Loud in the way silence becomes unbearable. Things moved through the woods that didn't snap branches or rustle leaves. Things that watched but didn't blink. 2 days later, another call. This time, a group of campers had gone missing. A family of 4 last seen near the same trail. Micah joined the search. They found the father first, or what remained. His body was sitting upright against a tree, fully clothed, eyes wide open. But like the deer, he was hollow. His clothes crumpled when they touched him. His skin had sunken inward like old leather, but there were no wounds, no blood. Just nothing inside. The forest grew colder, not just in temperature, in presence. The other rangers began refusing to patrol the North Quadrant. Micah couldn't blame them. One of them, Jess, started mumbling about seeing faces in the trees. Not like people hiding, no. Faces in the trees. Eyes that didn't move, mouths that didn't open, just watching. He took leave after that, never came back. Micah stayed. He had to. There was something unfinished about the whole thing, something ancient. He started sleeping in the old fire tower, where the walls still held a radio and a lockable hatch. At night, he'd hear things circling below. Sometimes the wind would shift and he'd catch the smell, rotted pine needles and something sweeter, like syrup left out too long. One night, he woke to the sound of breathing. Slow, deliberate, under the floorboards. He held his breath. The next morning he found footprints, bare, human-looking, but too long and narrow, leading from the tree line to the base of the tower. They stopped at the ladder, as if whoever it was had stood there, deciding. The final straw came when Micah reviewed one of the wildlife cams he'd set up near the deer site. He fast-forwarded through hours of nothing, then saw movement. A figure, tall, lanky, not running, not walking. It unfolded from behind a tree. Long arms, longer fingers, a head that tilted with insect-like curiosity. It didn't move like a predator. It moved like it was testing the shape of being human. The figure approached the carcass, knelt, then, with disturbing patience, peeled back the skin and stepped inside, like trying on a suit. Micah left that night. He didn't tell the station, didn't pack, just walked out and never looked back. The tower still stands, but no one mans it now. The northern trail is closed, officially due to landslide risk. But those who walk too close swear they feel watched. Sometimes they hear something breathing behind them. And every so often, a hiker goes missing. No screams, no struggle, just gone. Only a flat impression in the soil, shaped like someone who used to be. Rangers sometimes find strange things near the forest's edge. A teddy bear hanging from a high branch, shoes arranged in perfect circles, candy wrappers trailing off into the trees with no end. It was odd until children began disappearing, quietly, without a trace. In a rotted supply shed, one ranger found an old journal dated 1983. The final entry read, "It comes when they stop looking." Some say the forest is alive, and they're right. But it's not the wind or the trees you should fear. It's the things that move between them. Things that leave no footprints, no sound, only questions. There are places where compasses spin, where the air turns heavy and time folds in on itself. Hikers vanish. Some trails should never be walked. Some names should never be said out loud. This is the story of lost and never found. The first teddy bear was found wedged in the crook of a pine tree, 30 feet off the ground. It was old, sun-bleached, and missing an eye. No one could explain how it got up there. No ladders, no branches strong enough to climb. Ranger Olivia made a note of it, shrugged it off, and kept hiking. Then came the shoes, lined up neatly on a mossy boulder in the middle of the trail. 3 pairs, all child-sized. They looked dry, untouched by rain or dirt, brand names from different decades. Olivia didn't move them. Something about the placement felt deliberate, like a message, or an offering. Over the next few weeks, reports trickled in, whispers, mostly. A camper mentioned seeing a child near the trailhead at dusk, barefoot, staring into the trees. When they looked again, the child was gone. Another hiker found a trail of candy wrappers leading off the path into a dense patch of woods, wrappers that hadn't been manufactured since the early 2000s. Olivia tried to dismiss it. Kids go missing all the time, she told herself. Wandering off, getting lost, the usual tragedies of vast wild places. Most of the time they were found. But these weren't ordinary disappearances. No sign of struggle, no tracks, no dogs catching a scent, just silence, and a growing sense that something was watching from behind the bark. The turning point came when she found the journal. It was in a supply shed near the abandoned West Loop Trail, one the park had closed off years ago after a rock slide. The shed was supposed to be empty, but there it was, tucked behind a stack of rusted shovels. A child's notebook, half melted from water damage, but legible in places. The handwriting started messy, with stories about fireflies and camping trips. But about halfway through, the tone shifted. It follows the small ones. Don't stop looking at it. If you blink, it smiles. Don't go near the house where the wind doesn't blow. And finally, it only takes the ones no one remembers. The last page was cleaner than the rest. Newer ink, same handwriting but steadier. It read, "It comes when they stop looking." And below that, in jagged urgent print, "Please find me." But the signature was her name. Olivia stared at it for minutes, fingers cold. She didn't remember writing it, didn't remember ever being here before. but the handwriting was unmistakably hers. Her chest tightened. The woods outside the shed had grown darker, though the sun hadn't yet set. She packed the journal and radioed it in, but the only response was static, followed by a whisper so faint she almost thought she imagined it. Just one word, her name. The trail cameras picked up movement near the forgotten path later that night, a small figure pacing in a circle. Over and over, it never looked up, and it cast no shadow. They searched again the next morning. Olivia didn't lead this time. She stayed back, watching, listening. 3 more children were reported missing that month. The forest grew quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wind, as if something had pressed pause on the world. And then the shed disappeared. Not vandalized, not collapsed, just gone. Replaced by thickets and thorns as though it had never existed. But Olivia still had the journal, still saw her own name in ink she didn't remember writing. Now when visitors ask about the Old West Trail, she tells them it's unsafe, closed off, unmarked. If they ask why, she just shakes her head, because the truth is she doesn't know if she ever left that trail. And sometimes, when she blinks, she sees herself standing among the trees, just watching, waiting, holding a teddy bear. It is said that Echo Lake got its name from the way your voice bounces off the trees. But if you ask the old-timers, they'll tell you different. They'll say the name came from something else, something that calls back when it shouldn't, something that waits by the shoreline when the fog rolls in. Ranger Eli had been stationed in that district for almost a decade. Quiet place. Mostly seasonal hikers, the occasional lost tourist, and the usual summer campers looking for ghost stories around a fire. But Echo Lake was always different. People didn't stay long near it. Fishermen complained of static on their radios. Hikers said the air felt heavier there, like walking into a room where someone just died. Eli never paid much attention to the stories. Not until the night of the storm. It was early October. The campgrounds had mostly cleared out for the season. A freak thunderstorm had rolled in without warning, dark clouds stretching over the ridge like a curtain. Eli was doing the final sweep before shutting down the North Trail for the winter. That's when the call came in. A static-laced voice on the emergency channel. "Help me, please. Lake. Lantern." He tried to respond. No answer. Just more static. Protocol said to wait. Back up. Radio it in. But there was no time. And something in that voice, it didn't sound like a prank. It sounded broken. Terrified. Eli grabbed his gear and headed toward the lake trail. Rain came down in sheets, and the wind made the trees moan like they were alive. His flashlight barely cut through the fog rolling off the water. That's when he saw it, a lantern, flickering near the shoreline, right beyond the edge of the dock. He called out, twice. No answer. He moved closer, boots squelching in the mud, and raised the light. The lantern rocked gently just above the waterline, but no one was there. No boat, no one anywhere on the lake. Then from behind him, 3 slow knocks, wood on wood. He spun around, heart racing. Nothing. The dock creaked under his boots. The lake was still. And yet the fog moved like it was breathing. On the lake, almost obscured by the fog, a figure of a woman appeared with the lantern. Her wet dress clung to her. Her hair dripped with lake water. She reached out to him, then in an instant she was gone. He backed away, step by step, then turned and walked, fast but not running, until he reached his vehicle. He radioed it in, logged it as a false call. But something about it wore at him. Later that night, he pulled out the old incident logbooks. The reports went back decades, dusty, forgotten. But buried in the back was a yellowed article cut from the Echo Lake newspaper. Body of young woman pulled from the lake, October 12, 1978. It showed the picture of the young woman, the one he had seen on the lake. There were also handwritten accounts of sighting on the lake. The list went on year after year. Later that night, his radio went off. A desperate voice whispered, "Help me, please. Lake, lantern." Eli didn't sleep that night, or the next. That winter, Echo Lake froze solid. No lantern, no knocks, no static. But come spring, hikers started whispering again. Voices they couldn't place, shadows near the dock, the sound of knocking in the trees. Eli transferred out by June, didn't file a reason, didn't tell anyone what he saw that night. A flicker of lantern light dancing across the cold lake water, and a woman in a white dress with lake-drenched hair. Campground Site 17 has been closed for years. The records say environmental restoration, but the truth is quieter and stranger. Rangers still receive reports. Distant laughter, flickering firelight, glimpses of figures gathered around something glowing in the trees. When a rookie ranger finally investigates alone, they find fresh footprints, a still warm fire, and a ring of chairs facing inward around a scorched clearing. One chair is empty. Just one. No footprints close to it. Some campsites go quiet for a reason. You'll find them in every park, marked on old maps, closed without explanation. The kind of places no one wants to talk about, where the grass grows too tall and the birds never land. But sometimes the fire still burns. And if you get too close, you might hear the laughter. And the one empty chair might be for you. This is the story of Campfire at Site 17. Ranger Eli had passed Site 17 dozens of times. It was technically off limits, closed to the public for environmental restoration, though no one at the station could tell him what that meant. The path leading to it was still visible, winding through the trees just off the main trail, like a scar the forest hadn't healed. He never thought much of it until a call came in on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. A solo hiker claimed to have seen people gathered there the night before just about twilight on her way back to her campsite. 7 people sitting around a fire. But when she got closer, the clearing was empty. No fire, no heat, just a circle of charred earth and footprints in the ash. Eli hiked out the next morning just to check. Site 17 was further than he remembered, almost like the trail had stretched itself overnight. When he arrived, the air felt off, still, damp, the kind of quiet that made your ears ring. The site looked abandoned. The old fire ring was half buried in moss, the picnic table split down the middle by rot, but the fire pit, it was warm, not blazing, not burning, just warm to the touch, like something had been there recently. And in a rough circle around it, 6 large stones, like chairs. Eli counted them twice, 7. That night the wind picked up. A storm rolled in. Eli stayed in the ranger cabin, listening to rain hammer the roof. Just before midnight the radio crackled, static at first, then a voice, faint, childlike. "It's your turn." Eli froze. The signal was coming from Channel 3, internal use only. No one else was on shift. The radio crackled a second time and he heard the same message. The next day he returned to Site 17. The stones were still there, but now they looked disturbed, shifted. He counted them twice and there were 7. Yet no marks on the ground, no footprints, no evidence of how the extra stone had been added. And at the center of the ring, a small pile of burned fabric, something that looked like a park ranger's sleeve. A name tag melted into it. It read, M. Cooper. Eli knew the name, Mark Cooper, a ranger who had disappeared nearly 8 years ago while checking closed campsites after a windstorm. Everyone assumed he'd slipped, gotten lost, maybe fell into a ravine, but they never found his body. He tore the name tag from the fabric and stuffed it in his pocket. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. The wind outside the cabin sounded strange, like voices carried on the gusts. He lay still, eyes on the ceiling, when he saw it. Light, flickering, through the trees. He stepped out onto the porch. Across the ridge where Site 17 should have been hidden in darkness, there was a glow, faint, orange, like firelight. The radio crackled again, this time no voice, just the low hum of breathing. The next morning he brought a partner back with him. They found the fire pit cold, the stones undisturbed, the burned fabric gone. But something new had appeared, a chair. Not a stone this time, a real chair. Wood, rough-hewn facing the center of the pit. There were now 8 seats. Eli put in for reassignment a week later. Transferred out of state, No one heard from him again. But every so often, the campers who wander too far off the main trail say they see firelight deep in the woods. They hear laughter, the sound of something crackling, and always there are 8 chairs, one of them still empty. Some trails aren't marked on any map. They appear only when the forest wants them to. Local rangers call it the Loop, a hidden trail said to show up only at midnight, somewhere off the old quarry path. Some say it leads nowhere, others say it leads back, but not the same way you came. Those who walk it sometimes return, but they're quieter, different, and their eyes never seem to focus quite right. This is the story of the trail that loops at midnight. No one was supposed to be out that far after dark. The quarry trail had been closed for months due to unstable ground and a string of hiker disappearances the park never officially acknowledged. But when 2 campers failed to return from an overnight permit, Rangers Nate and Kelly were sent in. They expected a broken ankle, maybe a wrong turn, but the GPS went haywire before they even reached the halfway point. Signals dropped, compass needles spun. Then the fog rolled in, not a slow, creeping mist. This came fast, swallowed the trail like it had teeth. Nate radioed it in, but all he got was static. That's when they saw it, a narrow path that hadn't been there before, cutting through a line of dead trees at a perfect right angle. The earth was damp and strangely flat, like it had just been pressed into shape. The trail wasn't on any map. Kelly hesitated. Nate said it had to be fresh erosion, maybe runoff from the quarry. But neither of them wanted to say it aloud. They'd heard the stories, the legends told around campfires about the loop. They followed it anyway. The deeper they walked, the quieter it got. Their boots stopped making sound. No crunching gravel, no birds. The air grew heavy, thick like syrup, and each breath felt harder to take than the last. They found the first marker a mile in, a wooden stake, old and split, tied with a strip of faded red cloth. Then another, and another. Each one exactly 15 feet apart. But something about the spacing didn't feel natural. They found the backpack lying just off the path, half buried under pine needles. The fabric was faded and sun-bleached, as if it had been sitting there for years. But the tag stitched into the shoulder strap was unmistakable. K. Morris. Kelly froze. "That's mine," she whispered, "but it's not even the one I brought." Nate crouched and opened it slowly. Inside were old ranger forms, a cracked emergency whistle, and a pair of gloves she swore she lost last season. At the very bottom, tucked in a side pouch, was a Polaroid. The edges were curled, the image faded, but clear enough. It showed the 2 of them, standing in the fog, right here. Same spot, same clothes they were wearing now. Kelly stumbled back. "That's not possible." Nate didn't speak. He just looked at the trail ahead, where the trees had bent inward like a tunnel. The trail turned sharp and narrow. Trees pressed closer. Shadows stretched in the wrong direction. Nate looked behind them and froze. They had passed that exact tree before. He was sure of it. He didn't say anything, just picked up the pace. Then they found the fire ring. Stones arranged in a perfect circle, charred in the center, though there was no scent of smoke. Around it were 7 backpacks, all faded, all zipped, all dry. The tags had names. Kelly checked the first one, a hiker who vanished 3 years ago. Nate stepped back. That's when they saw the loop again. The trail behind them had changed. It curved, turned back on itself. The markers they passed were gone. And standing in the clearing now was a figure. Tall, still, wrapped in something long and gray like a ranger's poncho. Its face hidden in shadow. It didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched. Then it raised one hand, not to wave, not to warn, just pointed forward. They tried to leave, to find the path out of the loop, but the ground beneath them felt soft like walking on ash. And no matter how far they walked, they ended up back at the same fire ring. That night, Nate woke to Kelly standing at the edge of the trees, staring into the fog. He called her name. She didn't answer. She just whispered something he couldn't hear and stepped off the path. He ran after her, shouting, but the fog swallowed her whole. No footsteps, no trail, just endless gray. He wandered for hours, then he saw it again, the figure. Closer now, still pointing, still watching. Its face, or whatever was under the hood, seemed to shift when he blinked, like it was trying to become something he'd trust. Nate didn't wait, he ran. When the sun finally rose, the trail behind him was gone, but a new one had appeared ahead. They found him 2 days later, alone near the trailhead, dehydrated, dazed, his hands torn from crawling. He didn't speak at first, and when he did, he just repeated her name. He just stared, eyes wide, distant, like he was still lost somewhere deep in the trees. The loop, when it appears, doesn't lead you anywhere. It holds you, bends you, shows you the path forward, even when it has you in its trap. So if you ever find yourself standing where the trail curves back the way you came, don't follow it. Because by the time you realize where you are, it's too late to turn back. Every ranger has a story, one they don't tell around the fire, one that starts with something strange and ends with something missing. A voice on the radio, a light where there shouldn't be one, a name whispered in the dark. Just stories, they say. But some stories don't stay buried, and some are still unfolding. What do you believe? Truth or legend? Sometimes they are often hard to separate because every story begins somewhere with something. Every myth has a beginning. Every whispered tale is born from something. But these stories were created from my own imagination. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Whispers After Dark, Disturbing Stories to Sleep By. Leave us a comment below and check out the other chilling tales in our channel. Make sure to subscribe, like, and tap the notification bell so you never miss what waits in the shadows. Until then, stay curious, stay cautious, and beware of the whispers after dark. Our story time is over, and for now, let the storm and the sounds of the rain keep you company, and may the whispers lull you into a deep, dreamless sleep. Good night, dear friends, and join me next week for a new episode.